Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and I do a lot of paid tractor work on this channel, and unlike most people, I've made it a talking point to tell you on every job what I got paid and how long it took. And I can quickly see why most people don't do that, because the most criticism I've probably received on the channel is people telling me I'm not charging enough. Especially, I've shared these videos on Facebook a couple of times, and people almost took it personally, like I was hurting the industry by not charging enough. So I wanted to make a quick video just to tell you why I charge the way I do and what I'm going to do in the future. So part of it comes from watching Tractor Time with Tim. And he's had a lot of conversations on his channel about this topic, and he brings up the point that a lot of people buy their first tractor and immediately want to start getting paid to work with it without having any knowledge or experience. So I'm sort of in that category, that I've used some equipment in the past, but this is the first time I owned a tractor. And before I took any paid jobs for anybody else, I put over 200 hours on this tractor in the course of about 8 months. Now we're at 11 months and I'm at about 300 hours on the tractor. So, 300 hours is a fair amount of experience using it, and I started to feel comfortable going onto someone else's property and accepting money. But that doesn't mean I'm at a professional level with everything I do. And there are some jobs I show up and bid, and when I leave, a lot of times I'm excited to take on that job. I'm enthusiastic about doing the work and seeing how it turns out, and I feel like I can do a good job and I want to see the results. But I've never sometimes done the exact project that I'm doing, and it's possible I might not even be able to do it well. And so Tractor Time with Tim always describes it as, you don't want someone else to pay for your training. And that's part of why I factor my prices a little lower. Now in general, I'm probably getting about $50 an hour for a job. And I can see why that's not enough. Because especially something like running the stump grinder. You've always got wear and tear on your vehicle that hauls it. You've got fuel on your vehicle and the tires and everything else that goes into the vehicle. Then you have wear and tear on the machine. You're lowering the resale value of the machine. You have fuel on the machine. If I'm running the stump grinder, you have replacement teeth. I often have to cut the stump with a chainsaw first. So there's, chains, wear and tear on the chainsaw. There's an entire list. I pay for insurance. There's an entire list of expenses and depreciating items that you need to factor in. And this stump grinder is hard on my tractor because it's a lot of machine for the tractor, and could actually lead to premature failure of the PTO system. And so I understand why there are people out there charging $150 an hour to run their equipment. I don't think I'll ever be at that point where I charge that much. And one reason that I need to bring up is because of the economic conditions where I live. So I'm a real estate investor, small scale. I've got a couple rental houses, and I've shown in those real estate groups, I've shown videos of rehabbing my rental houses, what I paid for them. People are shocked. I bought a house for $14,000, fully renovated for under $50,000. People are saying, that's a $200,000 house here. Well, it's not where I live. Wages for all jobs are less. Cost of living is less. You can work for $15 an hour and afford to raise a family here because you may have a $350 house payment. So if your house payment's $350 and you're making $15 an hour, you're not going to pay as much for a stump removal as someone who lives in the same size house, but they paid $250,000 for it, and their payment is $1,700 a month. It's just not the same everywhere. So that's one reason. The second reason, or the first reason I talked about, is my own inexperience. The second reason is the economic conditions where I live. And the third reason is that I'm not trying to earn a living. So if I bought this tractor, you know, with all the attachments I got, all the modifications I got, the extra hydraulic functions, this tractor was over $50,000. If I bought a $50,000 tractor to make money with, then it's mandatory that I earn a good return on it. But I bought this tractor to use it on this property. My number one use was to use it as a forklift for our manufacturing operation. And you know, I'm not trying to get somebody else to pay for it. If I do enough work that I profit enough this month to pay the payment, that's great. That's a bonus, but that's not why I bought it. You know, so if I was gonna buy a stump grinder and I didn't have a use for a stump grinder, I just said I'm gonna buy this stump grinder to make money and it'll pay for itself, then that changes your mindset about what you're gonna charge. So that gives you the reasons I'm pricing the way I am. There's, I guess, one more is goodwill. As I said, I'm not paying my bills with this. I really like the feeling of leaving a property and having someone tell me that they can't believe how much I did for what I charged. And sometimes maybe the person couldn't afford anymore and you're doing them a favor, and there's nothing wrong with doing something nice for someone. But I understand how, if you're here and you're considering how to price work, some of those conditions may not exist for you. Maybe you are experienced. You know, maybe you live in a higher cost of living area, and maybe you do need that money to pay bills, or maybe you bought the tractor for that. You should probably charge twice what I am. The last job I did was the most underpriced thing I've ever done. I only charged $250 for this stump that was 6 foot wide. It was on a hill, it was up against a fence. I couldn't leave wood chips on the other side of the fence. It was a long drive from here. And I've spent a lot of time on Facebook groups about stump grinding. And that was a $1,000 stump. Low end, there are guys, probably guys who live in an area like me, who say, no, I do that for $500 or $600. And then there are guys that say, hey, that's $1,500 where I'm at. But that's probably a $1,000 stump. And I probably spent 6 or 8 hours working on it. And that only adds up to me making $30 an hour. My cost of operating the equipment is probably $20 or $25. So I was working for minimum wage or less. And it didn't hurt my feelings. I was fine with it. But it's not a business model, right? So if I went back to that job today, I'd probably bid $400. Still wouldn't be that profitable. And honestly, I might even turn that job down because it was hard on the stump grinder. Probably it's a little bit larger scale than I should be tackling, but let's look at another normal job. I've got one that I just bid at $250. The stump's 4 foot tall, so I'm gonna have to cut it down. That's a lot of extra time and effort. I'm gonna have to cut it down, and it's wider than, it might be twice as wide as my 25-inch bar on my chainsaw. So just cutting it down will be time consuming. And then I've got to grind the whole thing out. Now this one's easy to access, it's been dead a little longer. It'll be an easier stump. But it should have been a $600 stump. I bid it for $250. I think I'm gonna take that next step and say I now have enough experience to charge a fair rate for where I live. So instead of $250, that's probably a $350 stump. So if you've been wondering why I don't charge more, those are the reasons. And hope it makes sense to you. I don't want to try to convince anyone to undercharge for their labor, because you spend a lot of money on your equipment, you deserve to be compensated for it. I just show what I do on this channel, and I want people to understand it. So I guess that's all I had to say on this one. I'm gonna get to work, record tomorrow's video about trying to turn this back part of the property into a hayfield. So I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. In just a minute, you'll see links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.